Well, hello and welcome to what is the 202nd episode of the Adoption and Fostering Podcast with me, Al Coates, himself,
Scott Casson-René,
herself,
Paula Coates,
and itself.
Tristan Casson-Rennie.
Excellent. I was very sensible, very, very sensible indeed. Well, it's become like an annual tradition, hasn't it, Scott? Tell me what your reflections on this annual tradition.
Well, like I just said, we've got to give them their annual night out on me on the podcast, and then we put them back in the cupboard for the year.
Keep their opinions to themselves.
Keeps them quiet for the year.
Paula and I both know it helps keep the ratings up. So that's why we volunteered to come on.
Oh, you volunteer now, do you? Oh, jeez.
Very, very good of you. Okay. Just so you know, you weren't in the top 10 last year.
Yeah, exactly. So,
yeah. I don't know what that was about. It was a very peculiar year last year.
It was.
Yeah, it must be.
He probably binned it before he published it.
Yeah, he let it out for a week and then deleted it all.
Yeah.
They're not getting top this year.
Definitely not. It's wiped off the hard drive. And so I think it's been a really interesting year. We're recording this on what day is it? It's the 30th of December. Yeah. So I've no real plan or rhyme or reason to this. So let's over you guys. How's your year been? So shall we start with you, Tris? How's your year been?
How long have you got for this then?
Well, I suppose from a family perspective, it's been quite a strange year because we've gone from having a house full to being almost empty nesters. And that's really pulled at my heartstrings. Which I know some of the people who watch this will think that I'm the ice maiden cometh, but it has helped to thaw me out a bit. And I felt really kind of a sense of grief for the children leaving home. So middle son went to Scotland for 8 weeks to learn to do a new job, and youngest son went to university. So Scott and I really had to learn to get to know each other again without having children around the house, and that was a challenge.
Oh, it still is a challenge, believe me. I actually said to him the other day, will you stop trying to age us? Because he's like, oh, we need to live in a 1-bedroom cottage, and we need to think about pool cords, and this is the sort of stuff he's coming out with now. And I'm like, yeah, just in case, you should.
In case you have a fall.
In case I should trip him over in the middle of the night, when he's trying to escape. That is one thing. I think that and I actually saw a reel on because I'm down with the kids on Insta today, and it said that you're in your 40s and your 50s, you're not in your 80s and your 90s yet. So just slow down, enjoy it when you've not got these responsibilities, but don't just speed towards the next step, which is like, being that old person.
But there is this sense of not having young people around the house, and I think that's a real different feel after what has been 17 years of having young people around the house, So that's really taken me by surprise, and I suppose I'm still coming to terms with that, still processing it, still dealing with it, and I'm really struggling with it. I am really, really struggling with it.
Can I ask? Because I was thinking, as you were talking, I was thinking, what one of your characteristics of your adoptive experience is that you adopted children at that were slightly older. I mean, how old were the boys? 7, 8. So in lots of ways, you're missing 7 or 8 years.
Yeah. I have used the phrase. I was talking to some friends a couple of months ago, and I used the phrase to say, I felt those years were stolen from us in terms of not being able to be part of their lives in those early days, but also in the sense that we only really had 10 or 11 years with them till they reached adulthood, and then they were in pursuit of independence, which is a really good quality for them to have, and I would never, hold them back from that. But there was that sense that we only had 11 years with our children as children, and actually probably the last 3 years of that they were young adults, not children. So we had to learn to reparent them very quickly as young adults. But yeah, there is that sense of, when I talk to friends or family that have had their own had birth children, there is that sense that we would, particularly for me anyway, I do feel that there's that sense of being cheated out of a few years of having my children around me. And of course, now the joy is that oldest son has had a daughter, so we're starting to enjoy time with our granddaughter, and that's another new emotion, because it was something that but either of us would never have imagined in a million years we would be grandparents. So we are having the opportunity to enjoy that time with a baby now. And Scott and I, we visit our granddaughter every 2 weeks. She lives over in the UK. So either one of us is flying over and back every 2 weeks. So we do it monthly, but take it in turns alternately. And that's really good. And we're in touch with the family online through FaceTime and so on. So we are seeing her growing, and we're hearing about everything that they're going through as a young family. But of course, that's stuff we didn't go through that.
Mm. It's tricky. I mean, the cynic in me sort of would maybe thinks that the rest of the world who has birth children, they get really sickened off, so they're ready for their kids to move on, and we're maybe not that stretched that thin. Perhaps is a nice way of saying. Is that cynical? Might be cynical, mightn't it?
No, I don't think it's cynical, but I think it's true. I think that, and I think as well that we're probably less likely wanting them to move on as quickly as perhaps biological parents would. I don't know. Brandon's still here, and he's 25, but he's 25. He's a young 25, if that makes sense. Whereas Fraser's 26, gone off, got his own, daughter now. And then you've got Jacob, who's just turned 18, who wants to be 55, So there's a real mix in there. And we were talking about it on the way back from somewhere today, weren't we? And Jacob's going, well, in 2 years, I'm going to have my own place. And I was like, well, how are you going to do that when you're at university? Because you don't have a job and blah, blah. Yeah, but I don't want to be dependent on you guys. And it's like, oh, that'd be lovely. Just, not to have that.
I challenged him because he said, well, I want to be in my own place. I don't want to be coming home. And I said, oh, that's very nice. He said, no. I really do enjoy coming home and seeing you guys, but I want to live independently. I want to live on my own and look after myself. But we know with every young adult at the age of 18, there's that level of naivety where they think they can do it alone, and it's going to be really easy. But I suppose particularly with two of our children living with FASD, they'll have that level of dysmaturity that's significantly higher than most young adults, and that's something that we have to factor in. So, sometimes I'll look at 18-year-old and go, you're probably acting about 12 today, because that's where you are developmentally in that particular task or that skill or that facet of life. So there is that little bit that keeps coming back, but ultimately the chronological age takes over and life will push them along, so to speak. And I suppose that's the next fear, isn't it? That's the piece we're in, where they're not under our roof, but we're still trying to guide them and help them and support them, but from a distance, and sometimes not being where we need to be at that time because we have our own challenges where we live.
Absolutely.
Yeah, I mean, I think I see that across lots of my peers and maybe in social media groups and stuff, that you see a lot of adoptive parents facing all the challenges they faced at 15 have just sort of transformed into new challenges, and I'm being delicate because I don't want to sort of vilify any of our children, our community of children. We've got like a village, haven't we, in between us? Yeah, but that feels quite a challenge that maybe our peers are not, our non-adoptive peers or non-kinship peers, they're not necessarily facing stuff, this onion that keeps peeling, that we keep getting new layers of complexity and new challenges.
Absolutely. And I think probably the thing that I've noticed most this year, and it's probably hit me more this year than it has done in the previous 4 years, is that less and less to do with the adoption community now, in terms of feeling like we're adoptive parents. I don't feel that, I know we are, but I think because we don't have that same level of kind of, what's the word over here? We don't have the same kind of level of kind of awareness of adoption and all that sort of stuff. In fact, next month we've got Bernardo's post-adoption holding an event in our offices, and that's the first adoption event I'm going to have been to in 6 years.
Yeah.
As a parent, as a parent of an adult. And I just feel like it's now become this kind of abstract part of our life that adoption doesn't really feature as a thing. FASD features as the main kind of thing that we live with, and not the adoption piece. And I think that's only something that I've noticed over the last kind of maybe 6 months.
It's because of how Ireland sees adoption. Yeah. It's a dirty word. It's not considered a good thing to do because of all of the historic connotations with the church and with babies being exported to America for money. Adoption here is it doesn't happen. If you want to adopt a child in Ireland, it has to be internationally. Irish children just are not available for adoption to Irish people, unless there's an element of kinship care in there, for example. It just doesn't happen. So when people meet us and we talk about our family, there's a part of me that genuinely thinks that they believe we have had the children because adoption isn't possible. And that always surprises me because, look at us, there's no way we could have genuinely had the children. But the most common question we get is which one of you, who of you had the child? Are you separated from a straight relationship? Where's the mum now? And that's probably the most common question we would be asked living in Ireland today.
Yeah, I'm intrigued to know what it's like. I mean, this is off piste, but again, maybe it's not actually. In terms of you being adoptive grandparents or grandparents, just grandparents, being a same-sex couple, is that kind of is that picked up on by people, or is that just go unnoticed?
Not yet. I don't know. It's funny because I think that one thing that has come up recently is the fact that we got to know our eldest partner before the baby came along, before the granddaughter came along. We didn't really get to know her family that well before the baby came along. In fact, we didn't meet the family until what's it called?
Gender
reveal. So we were chatting about it the other day, actually, and I did say that we have no clue how they feel about they've accepted Fraser into their lives, and that's fine, but we have no clue about that. But I don't think it's kind of featuring yet because I think she's still too young. I think all our friends and family kind of know and understand that Fraser has had a daughter, and they see us as granddads. Word granddad. Just ages you
very quickly.
Yeah, and so I don't think it's come first, but we had a FaceTime last night with the little one, and straight away she just knew who we were, didn't she? And she was kind of engaged and interacting. So even for her, and I think back to when the boys first came along, they were well prepared in having two dads rather than a mum and a dad and all that sort of stuff. So I think it's going to be a very natural thing until maybe April starts to ask these questions. And again, we'll go through that with her again, I'm sure. But it's not really. I can't think of any situation that they've faced or we faced. I think really the only thing that's kind of come up is obviously that medical background for Fraser when Lorna was pregnant. Because we didn't know all of it, and that was really all that we could.
We were present through. So a granddaughter had been born that morning at 4:00. And we were there by 2:00 in the afternoon, and the pediatrician came in to do some checks, which they would always do. And she was happy with us being in the room, and she was asking oldest son medical questions about his background. And so we were providing the answers because he wouldn't remember them, or he didn't know them, or he just had forgotten them. And she didn't bat an eyelid. She just took it for granted that we were both parents, and that's very, that was very normal. But it's you take the clock back 20 years, it would have been highly unusual.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah. when we were called gay daddies, that was a completely different thing to gay granddaddies. You know, there's
Mhm.
groups on Facebook and everything for that sort of stuff. So, you know,
Mm.
we'll avoid that.
Special interest websites.
Yeah, exactly. And what about you lot? Because you've had a busy year, Paula. Yeah, I mean,
Paula's done more traveling than me.
yeah, well, you have done a
Oh,
bit of
yeah.
traveling.
Oh, yeah.
She's been further around the world than you have.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yes, I mean, obviously, this time last year we were kind of thinking about putting the house on the market, and I think was it around about now?
Beginning of January, yeah, last year.
Yeah.
And kind of we got some buyers immediately. Wanted to turn the house into a home for disabled foster children, but there was objections to it, so it didn't happen, which was fine, you know, totally acceptable. But we just kept it on the market, and but the kids kind of, I think it was a bit of a shock when we just said, "Look, this is what's going to happen."
It was
Because-
a lot of a shock.
Well, we
That's the
just
reality
I think
of
our
it.
whole mindset changed. Like, you know, obviously I was very upset last year. There was something happened that kind of really triggered me to think, right, I've got to stop living like this. But it because the house didn't kind of sell that fast, and you know that they all had time to just make their own arrangements. And Kirsty and Elsie moved in with Kirsty's friend who owns a 3-bed house, and Kirsty stays there often at weekends anyway. So it would just seem very natural for them to go there. And Corey was already planning on moving away anyway. And he's got a friend that he works with, Bulgarian woman, and they get on really, really well. So they said, let's get a flat together. So they've done that, and she's lovely. We've had her for Christmas. Lovely, lovely.
I'm just
Thanks.
intrigued to know why we're learning about the Bulgarian.
Anyway, but no, it's just you know the family grows and everything. So sorry, but I think you know for me, I think one of the major things that happened for me this year was obviously going to Australia, because I am not a traveller. It was a great big. Something I've always wanted to do is to go to Australia. Just don't know why. I think. Well, I do know why. It's because I love sunshine and I love barbecues, and that's how I see Australia. So, you know, so I was so
social aspect.
my brother was going to be 70, and so over a couple of glasses of wine and a party with my cousin who was emigrating out there, we decided we'd go and visit. And so I went for 3 weeks, 3.5 weeks, I think. And it was just the most incredible time I've ever had in my life, because for me to actually step out of life, of what I always do and have always done, even before I got married, you know, I was the one that had to sort the family out. I was the one that, you know, you're here to take care of everyone. And so this constant role that I'm always in. And I stepped out of that, and my cousin really looked after me, you know, so well. She emigrated because her daughter lives over there. She's moved in with her daughter who works in real estate. And we had a laugh because my cousin is wild. And we just had a laugh. Me, my brother and my cousin, we went to the rainforest. We stayed in the rainforest. We had great experience with the koala bear thing. But there wasn't a moment in Australia where I wasn't happy. I loved every single thing I did, you know, from waking up in the morning to going to bed at night. There was no expectations to entertain me or do anything. I just being in the moment every day about me. It wasn't about somebody else, sorting anybody else out. I've never ever had the feel. I mean, the last day I just sat and cried, not because I didn't want to come home, but just I'd never ever experienced life
Was it?
where you know I felt I was valued and important for me.
It's a damning indictment of our marriage.
But I mean, I suppose, you know, in our marriage early on, we did adopt. And so, you know, you live this life and it's there for other people. But to actually just take time out and be with a cousin who, without Facebook, because she's much older than me, without Facebook, we probably would never have kept in touch because she's from down south. Her mum, Auntie Carrie, I absolutely adored. But she was the kindest host. She was lovely. And it was all just really, really good. And I think for me, it kind of made me just draw a line in how I am. I did come back and step back into my role, but I think you kind of realise that actually, as life is going faster, it is having these moments that, that you actually do have to really look at yourself and look after yourself. So I made Al book me a flight and I'm going in 5 weeks' time.
Well, she said it's a trip of a lifetime. Fine, excellent. She came back to it. I'm going again. I thought, well, that's not how trips of lifetime work, really.
But it's funny, I listening to you there, that feels very much how I feel when I go to Canada and stay with my family. Again, cousin, Al's actually met him, but and you've met him as well, actually. My cousin, the policeman.
Is that the one that picked Al up every time he saw him at your wedding?
Yeah. And that's how I feel when I go and stay with him and his family, because actually, they have no expectations of me. Well, actually, they're constantly asking if I want to do stuff and blah, blah. Mm-hmm. I'm not bothered. Like it's my time away. Mm-hmm. And I think you probably feel the same when you go to Thailand for your little suction things that you do.
We'll have to put an explicit on the podcast.
but there's no friends and family there. But actually, I think that you and Al are very similar in that respect. You can go and spend a lot of time on your own.
I spend 2 weeks meditating.
Yeah, absolutely. I'm not saying Al would go meditating, but you could occupy yourself and not care if you saw your kind of friends or family for a couple of weeks and just kind of step off the grid kind of thing. So I think that, I think finding that thing, like you say, because life starts to get faster, doesn't it?
It does. And I mean, sorry, for me, like one thing, Kirsty, because I used to FaceTime them all because, I loved it. And I was all mixed up with time zones and things like that. I never got my head around it. But I remember like FaceTiming Kirsty and it was 35 degrees nearly every day. It was absolutely perfect for me. It was hot. It was lovely. And so I loved it. And, I was FaceTiming at home. It was just raining and raining and raining. It was freezing cold. And I mean, Kirsty often says to me now, she just said, when you used to FaceTime, me and Rebecca, she said, you were just so happy. You just were. I don't think they've ever seen me like that, just so free and happy. And I just was bursting with, just happiness, fun, really, really, really enjoying it. And, you kind of come back, like I say, and you just think, right, I've got to live differently. It doesn't mean to say I've got to, go away a lot. But
it does. It does.
I'm still waiting. Still got to do Thailand. We've definitely still got to do Thailand. But no, I think and the house was. I came back and I felt disappointed because the house had fallen through. We expected something to happen, but we just ticked along and we've had people coming to see it and things like that. And but anyway, we have just recently have accepted an offer on the house. And we have found a house which really works for us as a family. It's actually
smaller, isn't it?
Much smaller.
But I think just to sort of pick up on what you're saying is it's sort of this change in our mind where we've realised that we've, and I wonder whether it reflects what you're experiencing, that we've kind of gone actually we're not centre stage anymore. Well, that sounds a bit odd, and that's not that our lives aren't important, and we're not, we're not turning into grandparents who sit and knit and wait for our grandkids to come. But actually, it's a time for our children. They need to make their own path, and we will be here. But maybe up until recently, we'd scaffolded much more than we'd wanted, or and that's difficult. I think we'd scaffolded as we thought best, but actually, there comes a moment where you do have to take it down. And I think that's what we came to last year.
Yeah. And I think, it was, Kirsty had been with us for 6 years with Elsie, and I think she was ready to go, and it just needed that push for her. And, and she's having a ball, she loves it, and I'm not a full-time grandparent with Elsie anymore, because our friend Kate helps out a lot. So when I have Elsie, it's kind of more of she's coming to stay over for a night, rather than, I'm doing all of the childcare. So that's really good. And I mean, sort of we kind of got together for Christmas and they all wanted to sleep here because it's the last time they're going to
fit.
So we're kind of, every bedroom was taken up. And I mean, it was it was the best Christmas we'd had, wasn't it? It was
It was lovely, yeah.
there was such a feeling, a vibe of, the ending of it and just, the new beginning, but everybody just together, getting on, just everybody coming together was really, really special. And we just laughed, drank Prosecco and Bucks Fizz and had a really good time.
Yeah.
And there's not an element of like, the heart becoming a bit fonder when you spent a little bit of time apart as well, isn't it? Because, if you think about the 4.5 years, I don't live with you anymore, but actually the relationships that you've got with them. All right, 5 of them then. Yeah, 5 of them don't live with you.
4.5. I can't understand who.
I was getting confused there. I was trying to think about who the 5th one was.
It's a common problem we have.
But 5 of them don't live with you. And so when, and you've not got that same kind of intensity, pressure cookery stuff going on that you did maybe 10 years ago when I first met you.
No,
because you had everybody living with you. You had all those different kind of, what's it called? Those different kind of, what's it called when you different people, different,
Dynamics.
Personalities, that's the word, personalities.
Yeah.
And all that different stuff going on. And I mean, we find it when we see Fraser now. We got on really well with him, but because he's not in, he's not living with us, we're not living with him, we're not in each other's pockets all the time. We see each other every 4 weeks, maybe. It's a lot easier to kind of cope. Even with Jacob now, when he's in university, I think the longest we've gone without seeing him is maybe 3 weeks.
Yeah.
And but when we do see him, it's like half an hour, and then he's back to normal. He's in his bedroom, on his phone or doing whatever. But it's just that element of kind of less time together actually makes it nicer. Definitely, when you
yeah. And I think the older ones as well do really appreciate how much, now they've moved on. I think they've been able to see us as much different as well, because obviously for Kirsty, she was still, at that age living with a daughter in our house, very suffocating at times for her. Yeah. And it's just, it's just given her that element of freedom and just really enjoying it. So, so when she'll say, "Oh, can I come and stay tonight?" With Elsie, it's just really, it's a pleasant experience, and it's just how it should be. It's what we should have. And and kind of just really enjoying that. I mean, the pressure cooker moments still happen. There's things pop up that you have to kind of manage. And I get a bit overwhelmed when things pop up. I think, Tris, you're similar to me. We've said this before, where I can kind of see worst case scenario, so you're presented with a little problem. And I do go into the worst case scenario, and then, I lay in bed all night and I think the worst things and it's awful. But, even that, I was in that situation the other night and I kind of thought, I can't change anything. I've got to look after me, because I'm laying awake all night trying to think how I can change something that's happening, but actually I'll not. I can't. I know I can't. So I've got just to let things ride and just be there. And like Al says, be the scaffold and be something that can bring together when I'm needed. But they're all old enough. Well, most of them are old enough now. They've got to make their own decisions and mistakes.
I'm finding it really interesting because this year I feel like this has been a really pivotal year for us as a whole family. And one of the things that I really started to work out was I think, and probably you guys did as well, I grew up in a world where I got to 16, I got a job. Like I was 16 when I started a job, and it was a proper full-time job. And there was a sense of my parents stepped back and went, "You are an adult now. Because you've got a job. This is a new phase of your life, and it's a new phase of their life." And they stepped away wholly and just said, "Get on with your life."
Yeah.
And even though I was still living at home, I paid rent, and there was just zero expectation from me that they would provide anything beyond just, there was nothing I needed from them at that point. And there was also nothing that they were kind of willing to give. It was just, but that was the world they'd grown up in as well. And I think I've really struggled. What I've realized this year was that I've really just tried to do that with my kids, because that's what I expected. That they would get to a point and I would go, "Well, fly, be free, make your own lives. And if you ever need me, I'm here." And it was just this year that I really realized that actually my children, there's a much more important role for me to be as a dad. and especially children like ours who've got complicated lives and they are peeling this onion. And that's become apparent this year as they find out more about themselves and as they find out more about their story. Just this idea that I become this person who I was thinking, what would I want from what would I have wanted and needed at 25 from an adult in my life? And I thought, actually, they need someone who's just really supportive. And so that's maybe a lot of people might be listening to this and go, well, isn't that just what parents do? I go, well, yeah, maybe, but that's not my experience of that wasn't there. So I'm having to relearn how to be a dad in a really, and I'm actually really enjoying it. For the 12th time, yeah. I mean, the poor 13-year-old, she's practically feral.
I think that's where there's a good balance between us, because I suppose, I've always been this overparent, like, come and stay, come back, live with us, and that's where it works quite well together, because he can be quite abrasive and I'm very welcoming, but we kind of just need that touch from each other. He needs to kind of go, hey, hang on, I've got to step back here. You're doing too much now. I've got to go. We need to be a bit more present with the kids. They're here. They've come to see you. Stop hiding in the office, whatever. Which he does, and I get that, because I thrive on activity and people and stuff. I love to have that, and he doesn't. So. I have to accept that he has to come and play his guitar in the office to get out of the noise or cut the grass. And he accepts that they come and I make hymns and I do, it's like, hey, let's have fun. It's, every event, every time we get together, it's a party. So, but I think there is quite, there's that fun side of it, but also we do quite well balanced, because I'm a big family person and you're like a...
Well, yeah, my social battery is depleted by being with my with my children, and yours is recharged. And so basically, you've got to leave me alone a bit. And we've talked a lot about ourselves. Now, I'm going to go back to you guys. FASD Islands had a rocky year, hasn't it? But ending
challenging year, not rocky, challenging.
Well, rocky, challenging. Define it however you want. But there's been some interesting messages off Scott and occasionally off Tris. So tell me about you for FASD Island.
It's probably aged me about 10 years. Particularly over the summer, there was a hiatus where we were required to undergo due diligence that we didn't expect to have to undertake.
That should have been done beforehand, really. But
there was just a series of lack of communication between government departments, between agencies, and then to us. And we were caught up in this kind of area where we'd been promised money and told to spend it before it arrived. When a minister tells you to spend money, you take them on their word. The problem is that the people who support the minister hadn't really done much in terms of releasing money to us, but with a promise that the money would come within 30 days, so go out and spend it. So we'd literally spent everything.
We hadn't.
Everything but the kitchen sink.
What we'd done is the biggest thing for us was recruiting a team, and we had job profiles, job descriptions. We had roles ready to go. And so we recruited those people. Now, those people cost money, and we've recruited well. Don't get me wrong. I have no regrets about anybody that we've recruited. We've recruited the best of the best.
I've met them. They're lovely people.
We have, and they are just the best people, aren't they? I mean, there's not a day we go into work and go, "Oh God, we made a mistake," or they're just the best. Not because they listen to this either, because I don't think they do. I don't even know if they know this exists, actually. But anyway, but that was the bit that was the issue, was that we'd employed these people that left jobs to come and work for us. The cost of employment over here is quite high, in terms of paying tax and all that sort of stuff that you have to do as an employer. That we were aware of it, but not as aware of it as we kind of would have been in the UK, kind of thing. Do you know what I mean? Like, it doesn't cost quite as much to do that sort of stuff in the UK. Anyway, but I think when it came to the point where we had literally €0 left, and we had to say to everybody who knew we were in this position, guys, we're going to have to close. We're going to have to close until this money comes through.
I just need to put some perspective on this. where we had €0 left was the point where I'd messaged Scott on the Friday and said, we can't afford to go shopping. We're going to have to eat out the freezer. There is no money left, because we had, whether it's foolish or not, we had used our savings to make sure our team had been paid. And we hadn't paid ourselves because we couldn't afford to. But we wanted to keep the organisation going on the back of the promise. And I think when I sent that message to Scott on a Friday, I went into work on the Saturday again, which I didn't need to do, but I did because of necessity, I suppose, in my head. And I just said, this has to stop. And so I took counsel from people around me, professionals who work in the sector. And they said, you know, you're going to have to play hardball with the people who are funding you, and you're going to have to tell them it's going to close. And that was the hardest thing I've ever had to do, is to call the team around me and tell them that there is no money, that I can't afford to pay you. There is no job. Please don't come in on Monday. To go public on social media and to say we're having to close down essential frontline services until further notice. It was gut-wrenching. It was incredibly difficult. And, you know, it's probably the lowest I've ever felt in 53 years. I have to be honest. It was, you know, I sat at my office and wept, because I could see no end to where we were going, and yet I knew what we were doing was providing that very fundamental service to the people who live in Ireland with FASD. They had nothing before us, and if we were to close down, they would have nothing after us, and possibly until the next organisation came along.
Yeah, but I think that you've gone from like Acorn to pretty strong sapling in terms of the work that you're doing. You're not just this abstract kind of service that just generates publicity around FASD. You're intervening and supporting families in a very real and direct way, aren't you?
Yeah. So over the last 4 years, we've worked with around 1,200 families now. You know, we actively
directly or indirectly.
Yeah. We're actively supporting around 50 families at the moment as we're talking now. And yeah, I mean, there was just that point where we had to call it. And so for 3 weeks, the organisation ceased to exist. You know, the office was empty. Nobody went into work. No work was being done. We just had to let the machine resolve itself. And there was nothing we could do. You know, we had 23 elected politicians battling government agencies and civil servants to try to get the money released. It had been paid over. It just hadn't been released to us. And so, you know, the morning that the money arrived, I can remember vividly at 5 a.m. I woke up. I hadn't even set an alarm. I just had this gut feeling that I needed to wake up. And at 5 a.m. I woke up, and by 6 a.m. I'd spent 50 grand paying off everything that I knew the organisation had to pay, and also making sure every single member of the team was paid. And then the very first task I did was to send an email to everybody inviting them back to work. And that was euphoric. That was a lovely moment. And, you know, 3 weeks of pure hell. But now, you know, today we are stronger than ever. We are healthy. We have a good balance sheet. We have a good, believe it or not, relationship with our health service executive who fund us and will continue to fund us. You know, our service delivery, so the FASD hub is very busy, which means that we're communicating, we're getting our message out there to people to provide that support. But also we've just launched our Christmas campaign, and as of right now, we reached 250,000 people over the Christmas holiday and let them know the risks of prenatal alcohol exposure, and that our helpline is there for them to ring if they have questions. So that's the first time really that a national campaign like that has taken hold. We wanted to reach 250,000. We have reached, and we have a day and a half left to go on that campaign. So we're likely to smash that number.
And in the context of a population of what, 5 million, give or take?
Yeah, 5.2. So we've reached the 0.2.
Well, yeah. I mean, but statistically, when you kind of discount people who can't have babies, and you discount people who are too old and too young, and the wrong sex, then that starts to look like a really quite an important message, doesn't it, to get out there?
Absolutely, yeah. I mean, we had two different campaigns, one directed at the female population, one directed at the male population. It's really interesting to look at the stats around each of them, isn't it? So, but that's the first time we've done that and been able to afford to do it. And like Tris said, there will always be, for me especially, there will always be this element of, having worked in the sector now since, well, for 10 years, and knowing that funding isn't, it's not like you're selling biscuits. You can't be guaranteed that money is going to come in. I know, God, I was going to go into the depths of sales there, but like, you can be guaranteed that somebody's going to buy your biscuits. You might not sell enough one month, but you're going to sell some, aren't you? Whereas when you're in this sector of the not-for-profit charity sector, funding comes in bulk amounts most of the time, and if you don't get that bulk amount, then it's kind of, you have to find it somewhere else, kind of thing. So there's always going to be that element of worry for me, but I think that I'm very kind of, now I'm quite secure in the fact that we've got the right people in the jobs, who are doing the right things in terms of being able to apply for funding and stuff like that. So, I'm not saying that there will never be a time where we'll be going, oh, that's a bit of a butt clenching week or month, in terms of finances. But, I feel like we could definitely get through it now, because I think as well, we've learned so much about how the system works over here as well. It's completely different to the UK. Can I just say, absolutely, completely different. Most things are, but that is completely different. Like, there is no similarities at all. Commissioning doesn't work the same over here, even though the UK kind of conforms to the EU kind of thing of commissioning and what have you when you're engaging services. Even that doesn't work like that over here. So it's been a very interesting year in that respect. Absolutely.
So, what does next year hold for you guys personally and professionally?
Well, just talking professionally, I mean, we've just commissioned some research with the Royal College of Surgeons Ireland. I was up in Dublin just before Christmas, talking to them and just working through some of the remit, and that's going to be really exciting for us personally and as an organisation. It's Ireland's first piece of FASD specific research. And it's going to be published internationally, so that's really going to help get our name known around the world as much as anything. But also, in addition to that, we've also joined forces with the University of Galway, ironically, where youngest son attends, but nothing to do with that, where the Irish Centre for Autism and Neurodiversity, ICANN, are about to embark on some FASD research for us and with us, again, which will be an immense piece of work. And, that's groundbreaking for us as an organisation. 2025 is really, and I hate to say this, but 2025 is our scale up. We're going to go from 7 to 10. We're preparing to start
build more desks.
We're preparing to start recruiting for the FASD clinic, which will open in 2026. So we will have an in-house clinical psychiatrist, a pediatrician, occupational therapist, a speech and language therapist, all working in-house, and we'll be providing diagnosis in Ireland for the first time with the National Clinical Centre. So that's our scale up for the opening of that in 2026. And the crazy thing here is, and I looked at a document that I wrote when I first set up FASD Hub, FASD Ireland in the study in September 21. And on that piece of paper, I predicted that we would open a clinic in 2026, and it's just blown me away that we've been able to achieve this progress within that 5-year I don't want to call it a business plan. It was a pure prediction, but it was a goal that I
Strategic
had.
plan.
It was just a goal. I was like, Ireland doesn't have a clinic, let's go for it. But actually, everything is starting to line up for that to happen. And I keep saying to everybody I meet, I'm just a dad who has adopted 2 children who live with FASD. That's my interest. My interest is purely that. I'm not a doctor. I'm not a clinician. I'm not an academic. I am a dad, and it's personally, professionally, it's been beyond. It's achieved more than I could ever have hoped for in what is now our 4th year. Personally, Thailand, I have to go because my body is just falling apart. I've recently had some liver issues that I'm dealing with. You only get one of those, so I need to get that healthy again. So that needs a good detox and a good cleaning out, and that will happen when I get to Thailand. Scott's talking to me about having a sabbatical so that I can literally go out there and sort myself out for a month, because of all the work over the last 4 years. That have really taken a lot of focus.
Think about this. Up until about 3 months ago, he was doing 7 days a week for 4 years, and it was like, that's a lot of work, and all that pressure and stress of the financial side, as well as meeting all these politicians and doing all the stuff that's way outside of your comfort zone to begin with, because you've never done that before until now. Think the toll that takes on your body, as well as kind of your lifestyle and stuff like that. And it's time for, I think it's time for Tris to take a good month off from it all, and just be in his place of zen, if you like, a little bit like Paula when you went to Australia for those 3.5 weeks, just going and doing that thing. I do it when I go to Canada. I've not been for a while, hint hint, maybe next year. But
Scott, you and me, Canada.
Yeah, see, we would love that, wouldn't we? Because we both love the cold.
You would, and you should do it. You should do it.
I've got some people you need to meet in Canada.
Well, exactly. So maybe next year we need to look at that. But I just think he needs to do it, and just to get off that rat race wheel. And I'm not saying that I'm not saying he's done any more than anybody else would have done in the same position. But what I'm saying is that for his health, if he wants to be here in 20 years' time, I think he needs to do it so that he can keep on going.
I think what you said about Tris there, I think that is really important, because when Tris, you were sharing that it was kind of looked at, right, this is it, it's over. I was taken back to sitting in your kitchen a few years ago when you were talking about, when you worked in the railway and everything, and the things that happened to you. And as soon as you started to talk about that, I was kind of there with you again, and just thinking of that kind of grieving pain. That was really hard, and I really, really felt for you as you were just describing going in on that Saturday morning, and just thought, whoa, it's like going back to that time. So for me, when Tris is saying that you need that, I think that because you are carrying a lot of that depth of pain of the stuff that you can't change, you haven't been able to change, but it's how you cope with it and stuff. So I just want to kind of encourage you and say, just go to the place that feeds you and everything, and nourishes you, and have a great time. And because we do carry stuff along our journeys, and it pops up, and it's difficult, so just want to kind of say, yeah, you're right, go for it.
You've got permission, but we're not contributing.
If you want to come to Australia in 4 weeks with me, you're welcome.
Yeah. You didn't invite me to Australia.
No.
Wonder why?
No, I don't want to go.
This house move's going to happen when she's in Australia. I can sense.
It's looking like it.
I can come and help if needs be. Not, I'm busy. But the thing is, you're right, exactly what you're saying there, Paula, because you can't. What is that thing? You can't pour from an empty cup. And like I'm saying, there's other people who've done probably the same or similar kind of things. Actually, by just taking yourself out, and then I'm not saying that everything's well, actually, I think that we have this thing in our head that things are going to fall to bits if we're not on, if we're not there, if we're not doing things. But actually, if you say, right, for 4 weeks, just, I'm sure you were the same, that you came back expecting to have to do things, when you came back from Australia that actually maybe you didn't have to do in the end, but you probably in your head, you were thinking, "Oh, I'll have to do this, I have to do that, I have to sort this, I have to sort that out." But
Mm.
of course, what I think also helps as well is for us now, Tris going away to Thailand, they're all adults.
Mhm.
It's just me, and yes, I still have to work out who's going to be home, who's not going to be home. But actually,
And we have to get his pull cord fitted in case he has a pull.
You can get a wristwatch. I've found out this year. You can get the button on.
I mean, when I was in Australia, my cousin did really, really look after me, and I remember like one of the things when I came home. I mean, it was hard for Al when I was away. He had, and that it definitely was. But and I kind of came home, and I was just reflecting on time, and I said, "Can you imagine? I put my clothes in the wash, and then they were folded on my bed.
Mm.
Can you imagine that?" And I didn't mean
I do that all the time.
it in a sarcastic way or anything. Just that's never ever happened for me since I was about 13. And he kind of looked at me and went, "Yeah, I can imagine that." Because obviously that's what happens all the time. And it was just
You don't fold my clothes.
Well, no, because you chuck them on the floor.
Let's not have a domestic, but I object to that. You don't fold my clothes.
Well, actually, yes, I do quite often when I do the laundry. But anyway, when I do the laundry. But no, I mean, this is not about, all I mean is I had things done for me, which I'm always doing for other people. I had like my brother was every morning, he loved making me breakfast. He loved making me my toast, my coffee, and things that just haven't.
You were looked after.
I was looked after, and it was really, really precious. And, and it was really good as well, just sitting with my cousin and a daughter and just talking about all the stuff that we're into, and all the psychology of everything, and like their relationship together, being able to put input and kind of the dynamics of my cousin's daughter living over there, and suddenly mum moves in with her and her life changes completely, but being able to look at it from how I've been taught with my kids, from counsellors and stuff, to see it from where they're coming from, and look at what you're coming from, and sort of just being able to add that, but having that valued, and it being very new, and also to my brother, being able to talk to him and get him to reflect on his own life, and I love all of that stuff. So that that it was just great, and I think moving for us to this smaller house, and this house does accommodate Anne so much better, because it's kind of you go upstairs, and then you go upstairs again to our living thing, and then downstairs to the lower floor for Anne.
Like a dungeon for her.
An annex. Call it an
annex. A dungeon for her.
But I mean, I've been Anne's carer for 30 odd years, and she's lived with me for 30 odd years, but there is going to be that sense of separation.
31 years, 32 years coming up.
Yeah. And so, that's how long I've cared for her, and the care won't be any different. It's just that, there will be an element of her having a bit more space, and us having a bit more space. And I think that for Al and I, it's going to be such a different way of living, and it's forcing us together to kind of do things together, where, I mean, obviously Al works a lot of hours a week, but, I think everything's changing for us as a couple as well, like it's just all.
It's exciting times though, isn't it? Because I think I feel quite excited, because I feel like it's sort of a marker of a different time of our lives. And you've had sort of your experience of having to move to moving to Ireland, not having to move. You weren't on the run.
The country around.
Interpol weren't after you or something. But it just sometimes you need a physical manifestation of that kind of like, we need to do something different, not in our relationship, in our way we interact with our children. And this is going to be a really healthy way, because actually you can't come home because there isn't enough room. There is one spare room. You will have to fight over it. Or you'll have to keep your stuff in order so that you don't get yourself in a crisis because there is no room.
But I think as well, because what we always said was, when we talked about moving house, was we just still I need somewhere that'll accommodate a big dining room table, because we want them to come and stay. And that's, that's exactly what we've got. We get moving into a house where, when there's 15 of us, like this year for Christmas, we can still do 15 people. The kitchen's much, much smaller and all of that. But we've still got that space. We're still going to have a big garden the grandchildren can enjoy. So it's just, and it's going to be warm. We're going to have kind of normal central heating and stuff like that.
Well, yeah, I mean, well, it sounds ridiculous, but like being on a house where you can literally just have gas, and so it's all that stuff's really exciting. So I am looking forward to this coming year, and I feel like there's lots of things coming to fruition that, yeah.
I mean, when we just before we moved into this house, when we lived at the last one, we did, I said to Al, we need a 10-year plan, and it was coming to the point of, Rhiannon and Rosa were kind of get to that age and everything like that. And we just felt, as you know, we needed to get out a little bit further away. And I said to Al, we just need a 10-year plan. And it's 10 years this coming year that we've been here, and it's just time. It's been great, and it absolutely served a purpose, and it's beautiful. It's a beautiful home. It's beautiful surroundings. And I think that we're just now ready to go a bit smaller and get back into the community.
We'll be in a street with normal people and normal.
Yeah, I know.
We don't know that yet.
Well, with pavements and things, but I realise that statistically, men of a certain age they die off because they stop engaging in community. And I thought, I want to live long, so I need to get back into a street with people and rub shoulders with my neighbours. And
is that why you're moving?
Yeah, it's one of the reasons. Yeah,
and it is interesting having visited your house a number of times, many times actually, and seeing it through the transitions of, when you've had new windows and you did your kitchen and all that, and some decorating and stuff like that. And it is very much a home for your family, but it's a home for your family. So whoever comes along now will do what they want to do with it. It probably won't have that same feel because you've made it what you've made it. But certainly, every time we've been there, we felt welcome, haven't we? And hung over the next day.
Well, I'll leave the Fifth Amendment there. Exactly. I have no knowledge of feeling. I mean,
it's accommodated. We've had great parties. We've had, it's definitely been a really great move for us here, and really happy years, and the kids, hearing the grandchildren in the garden and just. Yeah. I mean, Elijah said at Christmas, he came to stay. He loves to stay. He doesn't stay very often, and he said, "Mummy, I don't want to leave this awesome house." It's just.
So we're putting him in with the house, and so he's with the house. Bless him.
Sober child.
Yeah, and we've done an hour. We've done a. Yeah. So, Scott, shall we do another year of the podcast?
Well.
Should we give it another year?
Yeah, should we give it another year and see what happens at the end of next year?
Stretch it out. We might do something different. And this year, I think I've got plans. We should do something a bit different.
We do need to do something a bit different. I mean,
I've got plans.
Oh, have you indeed?
Yeah.
Should we talk about these before we talk about them on the podcast?
You're getting invited over. Inviting you over next.
No. Well, we're going to release a few more videos, and I think we should maybe do some narrative podcasts. So there you go, Scott. And that's my plan for this year. A couple of narrative podcasts.
That's great.
You're going to have to Google that, aren't you?
Yeah, I'm just wanting to pick my phone up now to Google what it means.
We're going to tell some stories. Do some investigation.
I know, yeah. I think, it's been a busy 2024. I think 2025 might be a little bit easier. I am going back to work full time, just so you know.
Yes.
Going to work full time, he says.
But we're going to see how it goes. I'm going to do a bit of a trial to see if I can deal with it. But I think that might help me in terms of we're also hoping to move house as well. We can't say too much because we want to kick kids out. No, I'm joking. We don't want to do that. But we're going to be moving somewhere very different. So, we have to kind of take into account a lot of stuff. So there's a lot going on for us as well. But, I do feel like the podcast has got a lot more left in it. We've got a lot more donkeys to flog, if that's what it's called. Horses to flog? Donkeys to flog? Either, yeah. So, yeah, for no money.
Well, it's been an absolutely smashing year this year, and I'm excited about the next year. And Tris, as always, it's lovely to see you. Paula, it's been an absolute pleasure for you being married to me. What I mean.
If you can find a lovely Australian bronzed, not a turkey. Well, I mean, a turkey would be better than the one you've got sitting next to you now, Paula. But see if you can't find one of them when you're over.
Well, she said to me when she came back, she went, "We should move," and I went, "What do you mean we should move?" She went, "Well, you've got skills they might want." You couldn't move on your own, could you? Wouldn't you need me for that? And then you'd dump me when I got there, wouldn't you? I'd have an accident with a crocodile or a black widow spider or
I
something.
have already pushed the boat out further, and I've actually booked another holiday without Al. We're going away with all of the family. So Rebecca, Rich, and Kirsty and Elsie.
Without Al.
Without Al,
Whole
we're all
family
going.
apart from me.
We're all going, and we're leaving him and Anne behind.
I'm babysitting the dogs. There you go.
Wow.
He wasn't. He didn't grumble about it. He was quite. He had a little smile on his face when he. So we're off to Turkey in September.
God bless you. Well, on that note,
Yeah, God bless Turkey. Yeah, but you lot told me that. Jesus.
Hell's Teeth will be an international incident. It's been an absolute pleasure, Scott, and as always, Bon Jovi.
Anchovy.
Bye bye.
Are you going to say goodbye, Tris?
Bye.
God, that was
Wow,
painful,
that was
wasn't it?
painful, wasn't it?
I thought you'd stop.
No, it says
Look, I'll press it now.